My name is Kandy Crosby-Hastings. This is a video discussion board for U.S. History 512 at Liberty University. William Shakespeare wrote in Antony's speech in the play Julius Caesar, "The evil that men do live after them, the good is oft interred with their bones." While Mark Antony may have been convincing in this speech, countering the conspirator Brutus's previous speech lauding Julius Caesar, I am not sure that this is the case in our own American history. For instance, when it comes to our founding fathers, history has been known to emphasize their grand accomplishments while ignoring their darker human sides. Thomas Jefferson is a good case in point. School children have often learned how Jefferson was a champion of freedom and the author of the Declaration of the Independence, of how he was the third president of the United States. However, they seldom hear about the controversy surrounding Jefferson and his slave ownership, at least not until more accurate, newer histories came along. However, I'm a believer that when we study history, we have to focus on both the good and the bad. We have to focus on the real. In an 1801 essay entitled "The History of the Rise, Progress, and Establishment of Independence in the United States of America" by William Gordon, it states, "An essential requisite in an historian is the knowledge of the truth, and as in order to perfection, he ought to be superior to every temptation to disguise it." It is easy to get stuck on either the positive or the negative while ignoring the real. Therefore, for today's video discussing Thomas Jefferson's legacy, I want to explore a topic that's very controversial, one that's going to be debated probably for years to come, and that is Jefferson's establishment of the separation between church and state. Now, I'm filming this video surrounded by churches in my community of Salina, Kansas. Just right here behind me is a Presbyterian church. Across the street from me is a Lutheran church. Down the street, there's an Assemblies of God church, an Episcopal church, and a Catholic church. Today's culture shows a great diversity in religion. In Thomas Jefferson's day, there was an intense debate over whether there should be an established church in America. According to the article Virginia's Trinity of Immortals, Washington, Jefferson, and Henry and their story of their fractured relationships by Don Higgenbotham, Patrick Henry and Thomas Jefferson and other supporters of Thomas Jefferson, such as James Madison, argued and debated whether the American government should financially support a state church, all Christian denominations, or no church at all. Patrick Henry favored the second option. It was in 1786 that James Madison saw the passing of the Act for Establishing Religious Freedom, and that is just what it sounds like. There was no established church. In 1802, Jefferson's description of the often quoted statement, "the separation of church and state," was first penned. Ironically, this description was not used in a governmental document. It was not used in a speech decrying the Christians' influence in federal lawmaking. As Daniel L. Dreisbach points out in the article, Thomas Jefferson and the Danbury Baptist Revisited, these now famous words were first written in a letter from Jefferson to the Danbury, Connecticut Baptist Association. That's right, these words were written to a church group. Allow me to read a bit of this letter that is often quoted from another Dreisbach article that's entitled "Mr. Jefferson, a Mammoth Cheese, and the Wall of Separation Between Church and State, a Bicentennial Commemoration." Jefferson wrote this to the Baptist Association: "Believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, that he owes account to none other for his faith or his worship, that the legitimate powers of government reach actions only and not opinions, I contemplate with sovereign reverence that act of the whole American people which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state." The words of Jefferson admit the attitude that his concern was that the constitutional government of the United States should not establish a state religion, and it should not prevent the free exercise of any religion. Ironically, as Dreisbach points out in Thomas Jefferson and the Mammoth Cheese article, Jefferson's election as the third president of the United States was hotly contested. During this election, he had so many accusations against him, one of which being that he was an atheist. However, the Danbury, Connecticut Baptists, to whom Jefferson was writing this letter, were avid supporters of Jefferson's during this election. You see, they were what Dreisbach calls an outsider group. If it were not for Jefferson's ideals of religious liberty, they may not be able to continue worshiping in the way that they saw fit. As a fun aside, another group of Baptists, this one from Cheshire, Massachusetts, showed their support of Jefferson by sending him a 13-foot, 1,235 pound circle of cheese, made only by Republican cows, of course. This Republican Baptist church was a minority in their community of Federalists and Congregationalists. According to Dreisbach's Danbury Baptist Revisited article, Jefferson wrote this letter to the Danbury Baptist Association because they had written him a letter thanking him for his contributions to religious liberty. There is no doubt, according to Dreisbach's research, that while Jefferson's letter soothed his supporters' fears, it also agitated his enemies, the Congregationalists and the Federalists. Within days of writing his letter, this letter appeared in a Republican newspaper. It must have agitated the Federalists and the Congregationalists who opposed him and what they considered his infidel ways. Today, Jefferson's legacy lives on in the words that he wrote in this letter. Debates continue to rage over what exactly separation of church and state means. As Derek H. Davis writes in the article Thomas Jefferson and the Wall of Separation Metaphor, there are Supreme Court cases that decry any kind of Christian influence in government. On the flip side, there are Christian organizations that point out that Jefferson was only trying to protect churches and the religious establishments from governmental tainting. It is this historian's opinion that perhaps this is the way Jefferson wanted it. Perhaps he did not want the answers to be clear-cut, as those on both sides of the debate would prefer, obviously. In this one letter that was posed as both a religious and a political statement, Jefferson could easily have said exactly what he meant. However, their dual meaning reflects the duality of Jefferson's life. As I stated a moment ago, there are many contradictions in the life of Thomas Jefferson. However, that is what makes him and his legacy, including this legacy of the separation of church and state, only human.